Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, joined by Jake Crain of Crain and Company, the GOAT himself. You said something before we hopped on here. You think Cam Coleman can be Auburn's version of Julio Jones?
Yeah, and I'm not the only one that thinks that. You know, we interviewed Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl yesterday, and I asked him, and he's like, look, when you look at the specs, how he's built, how he operates, and don't forget, Julio Jones was really part of that, changing of the guard when Nick Saban went to Tuscaloosa in year two after kind of the letdown in the first year. I just think Cam Coleman is different than anything Auburn fans have really seen. I mean, Sammy Coates was a big guy, but he was more of a straight line guy. Cam Coleman is bigger than Sammy Coates. I mean, he's nearly as big as Julio. And I'm not saying that Auburn's going to go on some dynastic
consistency
run.
with his hands were a thing, too.
He does everything.
Yeah, right.
And something else, he blocks as well. That's another. People forget Julio Jones ran down on kickoff for his first year at Alabama as well. I don't think Cam Coleman's going to do that.
I hope we don't ask him to do that.
But I don't think the roster's deep enough now, Zach, where I don't think we have to. But when it comes down to size, ability, being able to drop your hips, to sink them, to get in and out of breaks, to be able to run everything in the route tree and turning 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls and strength in the hands, we haven't had Cam Coleman.
Right.
It's just the truth.
Right. And as far as the impact that we should expect as a true freshman, you don't see it a lot, but there are exceptions, and Cam Coleman seems to be good enough where he can be an exception.
Without a doubt, and there's two ways to make an impact. It's obviously making plays, but being a decoy and being a big enough threat to let other guys
Will he
make
command
plays.
Enough of that day one?
He's going to have to show it, right? He's going to have to put it on tape. You can't just watch a kid's high school film and then watch the spring game and be like, all right, we definitely got to bracket this guy. But where I think it helps out Auburn more than anything is now I think it's going to make Rivaldo Fairweather way better. Because last year defense said, you know what? Auburn's receivers can't get open. Their biggest threat is Rivaldo Fairweather. We know they're going to run it, or it's going to be some sort of seam player. They're going to put him outside, and we can bracket him. Well, now that you've added Robert Lewis, now that you've added Lambert Smith, you've got Cam Coleman, you've got some other young receivers, which I think are going to be talented. You can't double everybody. What made the Golden State Warriors so dangerous? Everybody could shoot.
Yeah.
Everybody could shoot the three. You don't have enough players to bracket everyone. So I think it may get to a point where in the red zone, teams say, all right, well, we're going to have to choose. Do we double Cam Coleman because he can win the fade, or do we double Rivaldo Fairweather because he's really a stretch five playing tight end? He's a red zone nightmare. Well, then if you do that, you got four guys taking care of two. You only got seven left. So we're going to see the ripple effect of Cam Coleman, I think, throughout this whole offense, especially when you get in the red zone.
Talking about Cam Coleman demanding respect to be that decoy, does that change how you should approach the first few weeks of the season? So come Arkansas or come Oklahoma, you kind of almost force them. It's like, okay, this is our guy. This is our guy on the outside. You've got to focus on him so we can get at other dudes. Does it change your game plan at all?
Well, again, you're always evolving as the year goes on, and we don't know what's going to happen injury-wise, and we really, got to see how teams are going to play Auburn because Auburn has more threats. They're going to approach Auburn and attack Auburn differently.
Right.
But from a play calling standpoint on the offensive side of the ball, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, just to kind of say, hey, we need you to focus on Cam Coleman so these other guys can get open.
That's exactly right. No, and it's going to help Peyton Thorne because you're going to have to cheat to double. It's going to tell the story a little bit earlier, which should help Peyton out when he's going through his reads. But again, when you have these weapons, that's why I always say, look, there's a lot of smart coaches that look like idiots because they didn't have great players. There's a lot of dumb coaches that look like savants because they had great players. At some point, you're going to have to make a decision. If Auburn says, you know what, let's put Cam Coleman outside at Z, let's put Rivaldo Fairweather outside at the other position at Y or X or whatever Hugh calls it in this offense, and you say, all right, we're going to bracket these guys on third and passing. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run power right down your throat because the safeties are occupied. You're not going to double them with a corner and a nickel. You're not going to double them with a corner and a will that you displaced from the box. So you can only call what the defense gives you. My question for Hugh Freeze this year, and this is what I've said, and nobody's talking about this, is Peyton Thorne going to have two plays when he goes to the line of scrimmage? That's what I need to know, because if you do that and Peyton's able to operate the offense in that level mixed with the RPOs, it is a death sentence for teams that are going to try and line up and play you. And then it just, you're beat at birth sometimes. And you can cover guys, you can play great defense, but great offense beats great defense every time.
Well, and you talk about the safeties are cheating away or cheating towards Cam Coleman, we're going to run the power. And the rushing attack from a year ago, when the scheme was just so vanilla and so bad, Auburn was still able to run the ball. And now you bring that whole running back room back. and the offensive line seems to be better. I mean, all of a sudden, it's like Auburn has an offensive roster now.
And again, that's why I keep saying, look, 8-4 is unbelievably gettable for Auburn. I think 9-3 is a legitimate possibility. That's not because I grew up in Auburn. It's not because my dad played for Auburn and that I'm an Auburn fan. When you look at the Auburn, hasn't sent me a check yet, Zach.
Right.
When you look at the schedule and you look at the roster and you look at the way that Auburn can attack people, there's two things that this roster has done. One, offensively, you have more weapons, which is going to open up Pandora's box for you.
Yeah.
And defensively, you've brought in depth and guys that can rush the passer. When you do those two things, that's how you win football games.
Do you think they did bring in enough to rush the passer?
Well enough. Now, Auburn's not going to be the steel curtain, on defense, but compared to last year where, guys were so gassed in the fourth quarter and, McLeod got hurt, Eugene Asante was having to do so many things. Auburn has enough depth. Is it the best defensive line or front seven in the SEC? No.
Right.
Is it good enough to be able to affect the passer and not only get to him, but get him on the ground? I think so.
Yeah, sure. As far as the passing game and the receivers, like we've said a lot of receivers. We haven't even said Perry Thompson yet. What's a realistic timeline for a freshman receiver who we think is going to be ahead of the game, but didn't go through spring? He's on campus now, obviously. How quickly does a guy like that become a part of the offense?
Well, it's Zach, it's a great question, but it's all circumstantial, right? Everybody develops. It's like teaching in a classroom. Everybody's going to develop at a different rate.
Yeah.
Like Perry Thompson has the size, and he's going in an elite college football weight program that he has all the resources. But when you go back and watch his tape, he's very raw, right? There is more to playing receiver than just being big and out-athleting everybody, especially at this level. Physically, I think he's ready, but it's being able to stem at the top of the route. It's being able to read leverage. It's understanding what you're seeing in front of you and being able to adapt in real time, including on the RPO. We heard a lot of this last year. Receivers were having timing problems when Peyton would keep the RPO, keep the ball and throw it on the run pass option. So I think Perry, if he can. It's one thing to know it on the board, to sit up here and say, all right, yeah, I got to do this, I'm doing this. It's another thing when you go out there on the field. That's why some guys play better than they practice, and some guys practice better than they play.
Right.
So I'm not in there seeing Perry and seeing his development. I hope, because he's got all the physical ability in the world to be able to do it, and you're just adding another monster to Cam Coleman, Fairweather, all these other guys. But it's going to be the mental side of it, and it's going to be the reactionary side of it when the ball is snapped, and even pre-snap, Zach, being able to know that, hey, all right, I got too high. They're probably running this. This is what the leverage says. And even if the leverage changes, because when I was coaching DBs, we used to change the leverage all the time. When we were running cover 2, typically the corner is at 5 yards. You got your feet on a cliff and you're outside leverage because you want to force everything inside of the safeties. But we started inside leverage because I don't want that wide receiver to be like, hey, he's outside leverage. They're running cover 2. It's too high. Right. Or even, hey, they're going to drop another safety into that half. So, the ability to adjust on the fly is another thing that I don't think enough people talk about.
I got asked the question on a show just a moment ago, and I was a little stumped. I want to discuss that with you in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. I want to encourage you to go to ebaymotors.com. Over 122 million parts, Jake.
That's a lot of parts.
I can't count that high.
I mean, that's you said ride or die. I'm in already.
We're in. Jake Crain's in. You should be in too. ebaymotors.com. I was asked, I went on Matt Moscona's show.
I love Scona.
The GOAT.
Yeah.
The GOAT. Make Locked On LSU your second listen.
Great plug.
He asked me, is Jarquez Hunter the best back in the SEC? And I said no, just because it doesn't feel like it, because he's not getting any buzz. And then he asked me, he's like, well, who would you put ahead of him? And I was stumped.
Yeah.
I couldn't really answer the question.
Well, you look at ETN, right,
sure.
at Georgia now, behind that offensive line. I think
transferred from Florida.
Transferred from Florida.
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird to say that now. I think Jarquez is definitely in the top group. When we kind of talked about it before, it stumped me a little bit too, Zach. Like, it's one of those things where...
Yeah, I asked you, you said no pretty quickly.
I said
I'm
no,
like, well, who's better?
Yeah.
And you're like,
well, it's funny. You look at all the quarterbacks in this league,
right,
and it's just deeper than the Pacific Ocean. But then you look at the running back depth, because the easiest answer would have been Quinshon Judkins, but he's up at Ohio State.
He's not here
but
anymore.
He's not there
right.
anymore. There's good backs all over the league. I mean, Jonathan, the running back at Texas, Brooks, has gone now to the NFL as well.
Yeah,
so
right.
There's going to be some that emerge. And look, you got to have a stable to be able to survive in this league.
Which Auburn does.
Which Auburn does. I think with Jarquez, I think his blocking has improved. right? I think, and you got to be able to do that, because if you just put guys in there that they know can't block, your tendencies are going to be through the roof. Catching the ball out of the backfield and doing something after the catch, I think is where his next evolution should be.
Yeah.
And he's a perfect fit for this system. I really think he is. We haven't had anything off the field, any of those problems, but it's holding onto the ball and it's becoming a better threat as a receiver. So, Zach, you could probably make an argument that he is. I would take ETN, though.
Okay. Top 2?
You could make a legitimate, rational argument he's at least top 3. Definitely top 3.
Yeah. Top 3 feels right, but then when he asked me that question, it's like, well, is he?
But who's the headliner? Who typically there's one guy, we all know at running back in the SEC, or who does Bama got, right? So it is a quote unquote, I guess, down year, at least preseason, at the running back position.
Yeah. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
It's easy. Crain and Company, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, CRAIN and Company. We're live each weekday, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Central. We take live calls, have a live chat. Heck, Blaine and Coney even played each other on the new college football video game yesterday.
Who won?
Blaine took an L. You blew it.
Yikes.
You blew it.
Yikes. Yeah, we've been neighbors all week.
We have.
No, one other thing real quick, that your conversation with Nagy, the Senior Bowl, he had some pretty high praise for Eugene Asante.
A lot of it.
About his speed specifically.
His speed, yeah. And look, is Eugene Asante going to go be an Olympic sprinter? No, but he's football fast.
Yeah.
And I think last year, if I had to pick one guy to make the play, the clutch play, it was always Eugene Asante. But his best weapon is his versatility. Everybody keeps talking about, and they should, what's LSU going to do with Harold Perkins? Harold Perkins is so explosive. They're going to do this, that, and the other.
Sure.
Eugene Asante can do everything. And it's going to give, this Auburn coaching staff and Durkin and Charles Kelly and these guys a weapon X to put anywhere they want, to really do whatever they want. Heck, it could be, hey, look, it's 3rd and 9. We're going to put in our cheetah package. We want to rush Eugene Asante and play 2-man behind it and stunt the front. Yeah. So I think as far as NFL ready, I think Eugene Asante is going to be a much better NFL player than Harold Perkins.
How about that? That's a take.
I'm just telling you.
I'm
telling you, don't be shocked. And I hope Harold figures it out. But you can't be 215 pounds and just a pass rusher in the NFL.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you got to play off the line, for sure. That's Jay Crain. I'm Zac Blackerby. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.